Okay, rock and roll. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 16th of December. This is AI with Kyle. I'm going to be running through the latest AI news and updates of the day, as well as taking audience questions live from TikTok, YouTube, and the private community, which is free to join if you come over to aiwithkyle.com and click on the join community at the top. So if you're not there already, make sure you do come in, because that's where we discuss what's been talked about on the live and go into a bit more depth as well. Also, there is a newsletter, which is going to be a summarized version of the live stream. So if you want to keep up to date with what's happening in artificial intelligence every single day, and you just want to read basically a bullet pointed list and have some links to the resources, then sign up for the newsletter as well. That is, again, totally free, and that is available at aiwithkyle.com. Right, let's jump into the news. So there's not much in the way of new developments. So this was the same as yesterday. I think it's just going to be a quiet week or two as we approach the holiday season. So I wanted to catch up with a couple of things that are going on. First of all, there has been what do we call it? I guess a tier list or a league table of the best open source models, which I thought was worth having a look at. Because there's a couple of interesting points here. This is not by any means like the ultimate list. This is from a company called Interconnects. So Interconnects work with all of these open models, so they have tried them all out, and therefore they're giving their opinion on this. So that's what it is, but honestly, that's what all league tables and tier lists tend to be anyway. The winner, or the winners actually, I think it's fair to say that the winner is China as a whole. The top model, they're saying, is DeepSeek, followed by Qwen, followed by Kimi. And if we have a look at the entire the list here, yep, the next ones are also Chinese. So all of the models that are in contention for best open source model of the year are from the Chinese labs. There are some noteworthy ones here like Mistral, Google Gemma, Nvidia are very interesting in this scene because they're giving away a huge amount of their models. They don't just give away the weights, but they give away their training processes. They give away absolutely everything. So that's kind of a cool one. But I think the main takeaway here is China has taken this. I don't even see Facebook. Where are they? Oh, there they are. They have an honorable mention at the bottom. So Meta make the Llama models, but as of this year, they have indicated that they're no longer going to be releasing their Llama models open source. And instead they're going to be closing off. We haven't actually seen a new model from them for months, so I don't know what they're doing, especially after Mark Zuckerberg spent an immense amount of money, hundreds of millions, pulling away engineers from other companies. They haven't actually released anything. So, winning models, DeepSeek R1. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. The Qwen 3 family, the new default open models, and Kimi K2 from Moonshot, which we had the most impressive release of that just a few months ago, about a month ago. Kimi K2 suddenly came out, and people were like, oh, wow, it's more than just DeepSeek, huh? So models that convinced the world that DeepSeek wasn't special and China would produce numerous leading models. And that's what we are seeing, is the Chinese labs are they're putting out absolute bangers every single time, and they're open sourcing them. They are saying, here you go, use it for what you want. Fine tune it for your own organization, deploy it on your own computer or on your own server. Do what you want with it, which is very different to what is happening in America. It's very different to what's happening with the closed source models, where they are locking down and disallowing people from tinkering, from building with the models themselves. But instead you need to pay a subscription, or you need to pay the API. So these are two very different business models and two very different software development paradigms as well. I've covered quite extensively why China are doing this. And well, I think it's a number of things. I think there's a soft power play. If you make your models really good and you make them widely available in the developing world, so outside of America and Europe, actually even in America and Europe, there is a certain cachet, a certain power that comes from that, because people will start to use these Chinese models. They're actually being used in American startups as well. There was recently a report on the Y Combinator applicants and people who were building in the YC program, and a lot of them were using Chinese open source models, which again makes sense because you can tinker, you can build upon those models, whereas with OpenAI, with Anthropic, with Google Gemini, no, not so much. So there's a huge power play there. They also, they get better. The more that we start to use them, the more feedback they get from the development community, the more they are out in the open, the more the labs get to push forward as well. So I think they're doing a very, very good job, and we need to watch this space. Speaking of which, this guy, Nathan Lambert, has actually put a few predictions. And as we're moving into 2026, I think it's time for predictions. I might do an episode on that. That'll be fun. So he says, predictions for 2026, scaling will continue with open models. So there's a big question right now of whether the large language models will hit a plateau or whether we can continue with this exponential scaling. So we have things like the ARC AGI2, for example. Just trying to think. Let's have a look at this one. So we got this a few days ago, about 5.2. You can see everything is getting better and better and better, and GPT 5.2 is up here. This is just one benchmark, obviously, but there is no kind of plateauing currently seen in the development of these models. And of course, it depends on what you're measuring, etc., etc. But right now, we are continuing to see that they are getting better as we make the models bigger and we put more compute into them. Now, there are some people who are saying that's not going to work. It is going to plateau. And they have very good reason for saying this, and we're not going to reach artificial general intelligence in this way. However, functionally, at the moment, just given more compute, making the models bigger seems to be working pretty well. It won't always work, probably, but until it stops, until we hit that plateau, until we hit that kind of leveling out, we might as well just keep pushing compute into it. That's the argument that OpenAI and everyone else is making. So Nathan here is saying scaling will continue with open models, so they'll just get bigger and they will get better through 2026. No substantive changes in the open model safety narrative. So part of the problem, or I think, okay, Llama is a good one here. So Llama is a meta model. It's created by Meta, Facebook and Instagram, Mark Zuckerberg. One of the reasons why they're saying, oh, actually, we're gonna close source this, we're gonna bring this in-house, is because of the risk of putting open source models into the hands of anybody. So a lot of people say, oh, we should make these models open source so people have the power to do with them what we want, so we can distribute power, and it's not just in the hands of billionaires, so that this technology is available for everyone. The flip side of that is, okay, well, once we give everyone these powerful technologies, what happens when bad people use it for bad purposes, which they can with an open source model? And this is what Geoffrey Hinton has been saying for years now, is these AIs are very powerful, but we must not let them get into the hands of normal people, because there are bad actors out there and they are going to use them to develop weapons, they're going to use them to hack, they're going to use them for all kinds of nefarious deeds. You can do that with an open source model, whereas it's much harder to do that with a closed source model, because it's everything that you do with it is running through their servers. Participation will continue to grow. This is his third prediction. I think this is fair, especially in businesses. There is still a lot of hesitancy when it comes to using Chinese models, this especially in America, because there's a lot of justified suspicion but also unjustified racism when it comes to relationships between America and China. However, these models are really good and they are for the most part free, which is quite a strong argument to make. Yes, you need to host them on your own server, yes, you need to have your own compute, etc., but it's going to be a lot cheaper than using a frontier lab state-of-the-art model from OpenAI, from Anthropic, or from Google. Ongoing general trends will continue with hybrid attention, dense for fine-tuning. That's fine. Yep, they'll continue to develop them. Open source frontier gap will stay roughly the same on any public benchmarks. So at the moment, we have a gap. So the state-of-the-art models like OpenAI's ChatGPT 5.2, Anthropic's Opus 4.5 and Gemini 3, they are still better. The closed source models are better than the open source models. So let's have a look at artificialanalysis.ai, for example. When we look at the intelligence scale, again, there's many different ways to deal with this, but when we look at this, at the moment we have Gemini 3 at the top, followed by, I'm going to have to extend that a bit, must be ChatGPT 5.2, followed by Anthropic 4.5, followed by ChatGPT, followed by Kimi, so that's open source. Interestingly, that's K2, I think. followed by DeepSeek, XAI, and then Anthropic, etc. So the best models are still the closed source models, and that's what we've seen continuously. It kind of makes sense too, because there's just a huge amount of money being thrown into those models, and that's the for-profit model as well. So the open source ones are always a bit behind. And Nathan is saying that will continue to be the case. Whether or not that matters will probably be a debate, though, because as the models become smarter and smarter and smarter and can do more and more and more, the difference between using something that is incredibly smart and something that is incredibly smart is kind of narrowing, especially for the majority of tasks that we use AI for in the day-to-day. If it's moving data from, I don't know, a spreadsheet, parsing it for sentiment and then moving it into a database, we already have models that can do that pretty well. So we don't necessarily need something that's even better. So it's going to be more about what can we do for a lower cost and still get a very high result. You do not need to use Opus 4.5 on the majority of our tasks. It is utter overkill. And as the models get better, that is going to continue to be the case, because the tasks that we as humans use AI for are not necessarily stepping up at the same speed as the AI. And then his final prediction, which I think is the most interesting one, which is no Llama-based open models released from Meta in 2026. Meta have indicated this with the release of their last Llama model. They said, oh yeah, this is probably going to be the last one. There's been no official announcement. I forget the exact wording, but it very much seemed like they were rethinking their strategy and they were going to be bringing things in-house and making them closed models instead, which basically removes America from the open source game entirely. Yes, OpenAI have a open source model. They have GPT OSS. It's not very good. Nobody really uses it because there are much better ones. And it kind of felt like a token gesture to prove that they're still open. But it's America has basically stepped back from the open source race. We have Mistral over in America, over in France, so that they're still open source. But apart from that, this is basically a Chinese game. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. If you have not deployed an open source model, I highly recommend doing it, just even if you're not going to use it, just to learn how it is done. You can do it on your telephone. If you have an iPhone, you can download an app called, let me find it, Locally AI. And on Locally AI, you can download models. The models are 2 or 3 gigabytes. They sit on your phone. It's fully disconnected from the servers. So it is fully local on your telephone, and you can talk to it on your phone, and they are open source models. Or if you have a computer and you want to deploy it on your Mac or your PC, you can use LM Studio. So I use lmstudio.ai, and there's also, oh god, what's it called? LLM Studio? No, that is LM Studio. I've forgotten the name of the other one. There is another one, but I personally use LM Studio on my Mac, and there will be others on PC as well. And again, you download the application. It will look something like this, which looks a bit intimidating, but there will be a button to basically load in a model that will download Kimi, it will download Qwen, it will download DeepSeek, whatever it is, onto your computer, and it will run it for you. And it's pretty easy to do. And even if you are not necessarily going to use it, I think it's quite a good exercise just to see how simple it can be to do. Because it seems like a technical master kind of wizardry. It is not. It's relatively easy now. Right, let's hop over to some questions. My comments are blocking it. Yeah, so if you're on TikTok, head over to YouTube if you want the full screen. So there's a couple of problems with TikTok. Well, one, it's a small screen, obviously. But if I make my screen share too large, it thinks that I am like pirating movies. So if I have a screen share, and it's over like over what it looks like on TikTok right now, then TikTok will flag it up as me sharing like unauthorized content. So I've had to experiment to make it smaller and smaller and smaller until TikTok was like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, so sorry. Otherwise, TikTok basically throttled the stream and say, no, you're being naughty, and I kept getting told off, and I sent a message saying, nope, this, I'm showing my websites, I'm showing my stuff. Doesn't matter. So that's why it looks like that on TikTok. Sorry, it is what it is. Can't believe OpenAI is so low. Oh, do you mean in the this tier list? So they are. This is specifically open source models. So the open source model from OpenAI is not very good. That's part of the reason. It's no good compared to the Chinese one. So let's have a look at the open source leaderboard. Here we go. Open LLM. Here we go. Oh, archived? No, these are fine-tuned ones. I can't bother to find it now, but this one. Oh, okay. No, this is showing OSS has done quite well. Oh, this is in reasoning, so GPQA. So this is showing Kimi K2 is the top one, followed by GPT OSS, which is the open source model from ChatGPT. I'm really interested. Have they not? I'm there. I would expect DeepSeek to beat it. I don't know this website though, so I can't speak to it. I'd have to. There we go. It's a better one. So what I can do is you go to artificial analysis, then you can do open source. There we go. So they have got it ranked. Again, we need to take these with a pinch of salt, but they've got Kimi, DeepSeek, Minimax, followed by OpenAI, followed by DeepSeek again, DeepSeek, Alibaba, ServiceNow, I don't know that one. ZAI is Chinese, Alibaba is obviously Chinese. So there is an OpenAI one, GPT OSS 120B High. Great names, aren't they? Which is sitting at 4th position, which is not bad. It's not bad, but also not as good as the Chinese models. Okay. No, sorry, Zenlove. So this is not the app experience in general. This is not even the models. This is purely the open source models. So the app experience is a whole another thing. And OpenAI, I agree, probably have the best one there. I personally use Claude the most as my kind of day-to-day AI. But Claude doesn't make images. It doesn't do anything with video. It doesn't have the ability to show Claude what you are seeing and get responses from it like you can with ChatGPT. The voice mode in Claude is basically dictation, so it's a very limited app compared to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT definitely nails it in the kind of consumer level app experience for sure. What I was talking about is more like the API and open source API at that. Ryan says, just checking in to say hello, keep up solid work. Thank you, Ryan. Right, so as I said, there's not much news today, not many releases. So what I want to look at is a few negative things about AI. So I'm very balanced when it comes to artificial intelligence. I'm not one of these people who's all like, this is the best thing ever, and it's going to change our lives, and we're going to be sitting on the beach drinking Mai Tais within a year or so with our universal income. But at the same time, I'm not a doomer. I'm kind of somewhere in between. So there's a couple of articles that I found which are on the impact of artificial intelligence on jobs, and I think this is something that we do need to reckon with, especially if you are in a job and that job is potentially at risk from artificial intelligence. It is time to start thinking about what you can do about that. I know a lot of people are just shoving their head into the sand, and that's not really going to work because your job, your company, or your industry may not exist in the next couple of years. And I found a few little examples, and these are brand new. It's a brand new article, 15th of December. This is yesterday, so good timing. Google AI summaries are ruining the livelihood of recipe writers. So this is a very specific niche, but I think a useful lens through which to see the larger impacts of artificial intelligence. So apparently it is an extinction event. AI mode is mangling recipes by merging instructions from multiple creators and causing them huge dips in ad traffic. So AI mode, specifically what they're talking about here is Google. Let's do it. Let's put vegan lasagna recipe into Google. Oh, where's my AI? That didn't work very well. Now that, oh. So normally, if I wasn't doing a live stream, it would show me the recipe at the top here. But it is not. Now that is strange. I doubt that this is in response to this Google, to this Guardian article, but that is very strange. So there's also AI mode, which you can click on, but that's me cheating. Okay, I'm going to have to use this for now, but normally, when I'm not on the live stream, it would show at the top the recipe directly. Let me see if I can get it on my phone, because that is bizarre. And what's happening is Google are pulling this information from websites. Google has indexed the world's websites. That's what they've been doing for the last couple of decades. Lasagna recipe. Didn't work on there either. So I don't know what's happening. Google are pulling all that information from the world's websites and using that to feed their artificial intelligence and then to serve up that information at the top of Google search results, or allowing us to find it in this AI mode like this. Let's do it without recipe. Let's do, what can we do? Best Xmas presents for nerds. Okay, I do not know what's happening. Oh, here we go. Here's my AI overview. It's down here for some reason. So, I put in best Christmas presents for nerds. The top result is geek, r/geek is Reddit. So cool. I could click on here and see what people are saying on Reddit. However, what's happening more and more is this will be shown, the AI overview. So it says the best Christmas are things like tech gadgets, hobby-related items, building kits like Airfix, immersive experience board games like Wingspan, unique apparel and decor. These are all things that I want. So yes, it's got it right. Personalized by considering their specific interest, whether it's space, coding, fantasy, gaming, or science, all of those, etc. And then it has these things here. And then this one is not actually a shopping link, but it could be. These are links which will search for Raspberry Pi in general. And can you see some of these have the links here? So if I click on this, it's telling me the sources. So this has come from Reddit. So can you recommend a unique gift for a nerd? Which is not this one here, but it's another one from Reddit. The 19 best Christmas gifts for science lovers from the New Scientist. Another Reddit, etc., etc. So it's got all of this information from these websites, and it's telling me what websites it got it from. Now, normally, these websites would make money by me going to those websites. That's how publishers make money on the internet. So the New York Times here will, if I go to there, maybe they can get a subscription from me. This YouTube here, if I go there, then the person who's put together that YouTube video will get they'll get cash for me watching that video because adverts are shown on that video. Reddit also has adverts. New Scientist, maybe they can get a subscription. Maybe there might be ads on there as well. I'm not sure. So that's how these publishers make their money usually. What's happening is people are no longer clicking on these links because I can now look at this and be like, oh, cool, yeah, Raspberry Pi. And then click on this and then boom, it's going to start telling me about Raspberry Pi. It's going to try to sell them to me. I did not have to click on that website. That means that the people who are publishing this information are losing their advertising revenue. Their revenue is diving. And we're talking things like banner ads. We're talking the ability to get people into your email list and then serve them up ads from third parties or sell them your own products. We're talking about the ability to retarget people. So once somebody lands on your website, you can kind of pixel them and you can send adverts to them, etc., etc. There's lots of different ways to do it. All of that is being undercut by the fact that Google are now showing this right on their search page. There is no need for me now to go down this page and to go to Polygon or to go to uncommongoods.com, or I don't need to do that anymore. I'm just going to read the AI overview. And this is hurting certain industries. So if I am a recipe writer, so this is what this Guardian article is about, I rely on you clicking to come to my website. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So vegan lasagna recipe. So we've got all of these different websites here. Let's see. So one pot Lucy and lentils. Lucy wants me to click on her website so that I am now here. I'm not sure if she's got it. There we go. This is an advert. Oh, no, it's not. No, that's an award she's won. I actually have my ad block on. Let me turn my ad block off and see what happens. I hate turning my ad block off. Has she got any ads? No. So I think the way she makes money is we'll sign up to her. We'll sign up to her newsletter, and then she'll sell us adverts. She also has a work with me, so you can hire her for stuff like that. But now, if I can find the vegan lasagna recipe on Google without having to click through to Lucy's site, then Lucy's going to lose revenue. And that's happening across the recipe industry, but it's not just recipes. This is everything. If you publish information online and you've relied on people coming to your websites for you to make sales, for you to serve up adverts, for you to do affiliate marketing, for you to do anything that relies on mass volumes of internet traffic, that is now at risk. So, I mean, this whole article is basically people complaining about it and saying it's not fair, which I agree, it's not. They have written down their recipes. ChatGPT, Google, Anthropic, everyone has come in, scraped those recipes, put them into a vector database, and now those answers can be served up via artificial intelligence. And in some cases, it's actually better than searching for recipes. Because if you go looking for recipes, sometimes you go on a website that's just covered with ads. It's really annoying. It's not quite the right recipe. It's for the wrong number of people. It's in Fahrenheit instead of centigrade, etc., etc. It's a bit annoying, and there's a bit of extra work. ChatGPT can make that easier for you. It can tailor the recipe to exactly what you need. So you say, hey, I've got 12 people coming over. I need a vegan lasagna. It cannot contain nuts because somebody is allergic to nuts. And I only have an Aga. I don't have a normal oven. Can you help me? A static website with a static recipe cannot do that, whereas ChatGPT can. So it's a reason why a lot of people are using this. It's really useful. It's a really good experience. But it does mean that these people who have relied on this for their money for years, decades, are in trouble. So this article, I'll put it in the newsletter tomorrow, but it's basically people complaining about that and saying it's not fair. I agree, it is not fair. That does not mean that it's going to change anything. And you see this with AI artists as well, and VFX and stuff like that. Just because it's not fair doesn't mean you can just bury your head in the sand and ignore it and hope that somebody somewhere is going to come and say, no, this is awful, we're going to stop all of this. That's not going to happen. It's a Pandora's box that has been opened. The technology is out there. We just talked about open source models as well. So even if OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, XAI, all of them were like, okay, we made a mistake, we're stopping it. It would not matter because the models are now open sourced. Anyone can download one of these models and deploy it on their own device. Literally, the Pandora's box has been opened now. So it cannot be put back in. There are multiple copies of these weights all over the world, so it's not going away. So complaining about it not being fair and the ethics of it being trained on your information and not being able to get people to your website is kind of irrelevant at this point. This is now happening. So the question is, well, what do we do now? What's the next thing to do? So I think, and I actually noticed it at the bottom of this article, I think the thing you have to do is you need to lean into the more human. Here we go. As more people become aware of the amount of AI slop on the internet and how to identify it, Critchlow believes they will develop a greater appreciation for content produced by humans. People will ultimately place a higher premium on being able to know these recipes have been tested by somebody I follow and somebody I respect that I like. I think this is not just in recipes, not just in online publishing, but I think this is the key to kind of surviving and thriving as we move into this AI world, is to become known as a person who does something. And that comes from producing content, by educating people, by helping people, by getting out there and making yourself known as the person who does whatever it is you want to be known for. That is going to be super important, and that's going to be public speaking, that is going to be picking up your telephone and recording videos, that is going to be writing books, that is going to be creating content by teaching people. It's putting yourself in a kind of a linchpin position where people know you as a human. That's what differentiates you from an artificial intelligence and allows you to weather whatever is coming at us. And again, this is not just for recipes, this is not just for content creation, this is everything. Because when everyone becomes amorphous and they become, their tasks can be done by an artificial intelligence, what is going to differentiate you from that is by being a person. So you need to make yourself as much of a person as possible. That sounds weird. You need to be known as a person in order to cut through the noise. So that's why I highly recommend to people that they start recording, they start making content, they start talking about it, what they do, they start learning how to public speak, really, really, really valuable. And then just leaning into the human elements that AI cannot do in a very dramatic way. I think that's the safest you can be moving forward. I'm probably wrong, but that's what I'm doing personally, and that's what I highly recommend other people do as well. I'm going to hop over to some questions. Oh, hey, Garni, how are you? I saw your post, Garni, on Feifei Li's. Let me pull it up. Time 100. Feifei Li. Actually, just need to... That's not what I need. I need the Time 100 cover. Okay, let's do an AI overview. Where is it? It's a terrible cover too. I don't know who designed it, but... So a couple of days, Time announced that the person of the year is artificial intelligence, or technically the architects of artificial intelligence. Hilariously, this led to a... on one of the betting sites, you know, there's... what do you call it? Like micro betting, where you can... Oh my god, so much to click. Where Time have added a very annoying AI. Ah! That's very annoying. Right, finally, I've got the image. Here we go. There we go, there we go. So, Time, a few days ago, announced that the person of the year is AI / the architects of AI. So it's a group of people, and they released 2 different covers. And this caused a lot of confusion on Polymarket, one of the betting companies, because lots of people had bet that AI would be the person of the year. And Polymarket was like, no, it's either Polymarket or Cauchy, I forget. They said, no, actually, the person of the year is the architects of AI. It's these people here. It is not AI. So the fact that there were these 2 covers caused absolute chaos on the betting markets. The fact that we can bet on these things is, in and of itself, quite weird, but that's a talk for another time. So these are the people that they added here. And so Garni, who's in my TikTok channel right now, did a video on this specifically about Feifei Li, who's over here. Now she should have got a bit more love. So it's such a bizarre picture because it's apparently it is hand drawn. I think that's what they're trying to prove with this thing behind, but it's not very good. And the composition's all off. But what I found really annoying was that they'd pushed Feifei Li off the side. She's like in the border, but there's some extra edge here on the left of Mark Zuckerberg, so you could have just everyone shift up a little bit. It's such a bizarre, odd image. But yeah, Time have said that the person of the year, persons of the year are the architects of AI. I mean, let's be honest, who cares what they say? But it's nice of them to think they're relevant. Right. Garni's saying it's hand-drawn. I think it's hand-drawn, but it's not very good. Because they look like they've been composited, like they've pulled them out of other images and then stuck them on there, because everyone's sitting in weird weird angles, so it looks a bit like they've had photos of them taken on stage and then somebody's composited them onto the girder. But I don't know, the whole thing looks odd. Morning, Nikki. Right, so continuing the anti-AI day. It's not that. I like to keep up to date with what the people who are against artificial intelligence are saying, because, well, one, often they are right. They have a lot of good arguments that they're making, and we need to move ourselves out of our bubble. But 2, it's also a really useful way to see how AI is impacting people personally. And this is a really good website for this. It's called Blood in the Machine, and they're doing a series called AI Killed My Job, which is fascinating, like whether you are pro or anti artificial intelligence. Real life stories about how AI is impacting people's working lives. So we have one on translators, one on tech workers, and one that just came out, which is on copywriters. So copywriters are specifically people who will write not only this, but they'll write like the copy for advertising. So if you've ever seen Mad Men, for example, when they create the text, when they come up with taglines, when they come up with the words that go into an advert, that's a copywriter. But copywriters also do things like websites. If I'm putting together a sales web page, I used to hire a copywriter. If I was putting together an email sales sequence, I used to hire an email copywriter, and for a sales page, I'd probably pay them £2,000, £3,000, like a decent money for them. I do not do that myself anymore. I use Claude, so Claude does all of my sales material, and that seems to be the case for a lot of people in the industry. So this blood in the machine, I was forced to use AI until the day I was laid off. Copywriters reveal how AI has decimated their industry. This is another story of AI making real impact into industries, because there are a lot of people saying, oh no, it's not, no, it's just going to make new jobs, and any jobs being lost right now are just the still the impact of COVID or something like that. It's like, no, this is here. this is taking jobs. So copywriters were one of the first to have their jobs targeted by AI firms. Yeah, I mean, it's text. These are their stories 3 years into the AI era, so 3 years after ChatGPT. AI didn't quite kill my current job, but it does mean that most of my job is now training AI to do a job I would have previously trained humans to do, he told me. This is somebody who's still got a job, Jacques. It certainly killed the job I used to have, which I used to climb into my current role. He was concerned for himself as well as for many of his junior peers. As he told me, I have no idea how entry-level developers, support agents or copywriters are supposed to become senior devs, support managers or marketers when the experience required to ascend is no longer available. So this is a wide problem. This is a problem in legal firms. This is going to be a problem in any industry where you are expected to do grunt work for the first few years. When you are doing the grunt work for the seniors, you're basically putting in your reps. You are sharpening your weapons. You are learning how to do this stuff by just doing it again and again and again. So in legal professions, you're doing discovery. So it's a huge amount of research, for example. It's going through massive amounts of documentation and the legal statutes and working out how everything fits together. That's pattern matching on huge corpuses of written data. That is something that AI is really good at. Really good at. So that's work that's going to be taken from legal clerks. They're not going to have to do that anymore. So we either need less legal clerks or we need to find something else for them to do. But in any case, they're not going to get the experience of spending thousands of hours doing that drudge work, which will hone their intuition and hone their ability to move up. That's just been taken away. And that's not just the case in legal, that's going to be the case in copywriting. So in copywriting, you'll be doing the less important copy, and you're going to be doing lots of variations, and you're passing them up to a senior who will choose, refine, help you learn what good copy is versus what bad copy is. Again, now an AI can spit out 100 different variations, which go straight to the senior. You can also have the AI run some tests on it beforehand, etc., in order to find the first. And you are just going to put as many variations into Google ads or into Facebook ads as possible, and then let the algorithm work out the best one. You do not necessarily need a junior, an entry-level person doing all of that kind of grunt work. So it's going to have a huge issue in every single industry, and I think insidiously this is how AI impacts jobs. It does not wholesale replace a job. It's not that, Stephen in accounts is suddenly going to lose his job and there is a computer sitting on his desk and AI is taking his job. No, it's going to chip away at tasks inside of a job, and then when enough of those tasks have been removed from that job, we don't need to hire as many people. Labor and hiring people is one of the biggest expenses for most businesses. And if you have a choice between getting the same amount of work done but having 10 times less people, it's a pretty easy choice when you're running a business. So those tasks are going to be chipped down. So let's say your job has 10 different tasks, and now 7 of those tasks can be done by an AI. Only 3 of them actually need a human. Over your organization, that kind of means we need to hire less people. Instead of hiring 10 people, we're going to hire 3 people, and we're going to have AI do the rest of the work. So it's going to be a little more insidious than just it took my job. It's going to be, it took my tasks, and then, we don't need as many people. And that's going to kick the bottom out from a lot of industries. When we checked back in with Jacques 6 months later, his company had laid him off. I was actually let go the week before Thanksgiving now, now that AI was good enough. So this is Jacques who helped train the AI that has now replaced him. He elaborated, chatbots came in and made it so my job was managing the bots instead of a team of reps. Once the bots were sufficiently trained up to offer good enough support, then I was out. I prided myself on being the best. The company was actually awarded a Best Support award by G2. We had a reputation for excellence that I'm sure will now blend in with the rest of the pack of chatbots that may or may not have a human reviewing them and making tweaks. Yeah, so it looks like Jacques was brought in to, well, sorry, his job became training his successor, and his successor was AI. And within 6 months, that AI was good enough to replace him, and you did not need that human person. And he says here it's trained up to offer good enough support. The thing is, a lot of the time, the AIs can provide as good or superior, because a lot of people do hide behind this defense of, oh, I get that it's cheap and that's why I've been replaced, but it is crap and I'm better. A lot of the time we're not. A lot of the time the AIs can do a better job than us. And when something can do a better job and it can do it for cheaper than a human being, like economically, the only reason there's no good economic reason to keep that person in play, to keep them a job. For ethical reasons, for moral reasons, 100%. But from a pure like economic view, if the AI is better and cheaper and faster, then there's no reason to keep that human staff member. As brutal as that sounds, you either need to repurpose them into doing something else within your organization, or they get let go. And that's what we're going to see across a lot of industries. I'm not supporting this, by the way, but it is the reality of the situation. Here's a simple, though not strong, of documenting your work. Write your business idea. Jack says, what I want to see is the same people overseeing the AI and being 10 times more productive. Yeah, so instead of AI replacement, we have AI augmentation, which means basically you can work with AIs and do a hell of a lot more. And the thing is, that person who's really good at working with the AIs, yeah, maybe their job is safe and they're doing 10 times as much. That still means we don't need to hire as many people. We don't need as many people in the organization as a whole, because now we have 10x operators and working with artificial intelligence. So we can kind of put a hiring freeze on, we can pause, we can not bring in entry-level people, so we won't necessarily have people coming in later, because our seniors can now do 10 times the work. Why would we bother bringing in juniors? Obviously, forward thinking is, oh, well, we will need juniors because we need to train them up into seniors later. But then again, if that work has been taken and there's no work for the juniors to do, then how are they going to learn? Do we just give them kind of charitable work so they can learn, even if they're slower and worse than the AIs? And then, so the counter argument to this will be, well, no, we're going to sell 10 times as much. We're going to do 10 times as much work. That relies on the economy growing at the same time. So if a company is automating and doing really well, and they're able to supply a huge amount more of whatever it is they do, whether it's a service, whether they're building stuff, whatever value they're providing, now they're able to produce 10 times as much. Fantastic, but the market still needs to support that. There needs to be a demand for that. Otherwise, the price of what they are supplying will collapse, especially for other industries. Other businesses are doing it as well. So we will require demand to increase at the same time as our ability to supply value. That is something we're definitely not seeing, because our economies are, in the West at least, they are stagnant. Like in the UK in particular, they celebrate when we have a 0.5% increase in GDP, or 0.5% GDP in kind of growth. It's like, that's nothing. So yeah, systemically, we need to also produce demand. Otherwise, AI just leads to oversupply and value collapses. So Jacques has relocated to Mexico, where the cost of living is cheaper, while he looks for new work. He's not optimistic. As he puts it, it's getting dark out there, man. So I'm going to put all of these stories, I'll link to them all actually, because they're quite interesting. I've got one on tech workers. These are anecdotal, obviously, but I think it is useful to remind ourselves that this is happening to real people. This is not just when we see those numbers on, 9,000 people axed from Microsoft due to AI. We have to remember that's 9,000 people with families and heading into Christmas, etc. So these are people. So I think these anecdotal stories are still useful, as long as we keep a grip of what the larger picture is as well. Garni says, have you read the AI as normal technology paper? No, I have not. This one? The Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University. I have not read it. I will read this. You always find the best papers, by the way. Are you still doing that series where you say these are the interesting pieces of media that I've read or watched? Because that was really cool. What are your views on the EU AI Act? I feel a bit sorry for them. So, whatever regulation you're trying to put out, this is not EU, this is not specific to anyone, it's not even specific to AI. Whenever you're trying to regulate, it just takes time. That is a very long process because you need to go out and find out what's going on. Then you need to have discussions, and there are lots of committees, and then you kind of draft up what your proposal is going to be, and then there's going to be rounds of changes, and different interest parties want different things changed, and you debate and blah blah blah, and then eventually you release a draft, and everyone's like, oh, we hate it, and then you go back to drawing board, and then 6 months later you've got such and such, and boom, okay, yes, it's ready, we're going to get it signed, and boom, it's signed, and it's 2 or 3 years later. 2 or 3 years in artificial intelligence is a lifetime. So ChatGPT, the public release of GPT-3 was 3 years ago. It was November the 29th, I think. So just 3 years and 2 weeks ago. A lot has changed in 3 years. But the rate at which regulation can be written and drafted and argued about and signed into law is not able to work on the timescales that AI is progressing. So it means, but whatever they have ready, whether the regulation is great, whether the regulation is terrible, doesn't really matter. Whatever they have ready is going to be out of date by the time it comes out. And they've even kind of admitted that with the EU AI Act. They've said, we actually need to go back to the drawing board with this. So they are going to be removing some of the stipulations, some of the parts of it, because they realise that the reality has shifted under their feet a lot in the last couple of years. So I have no problems with the idea of regulating AI. I think we do need to do so. It's just from a practical point of view, a pragmatic point of view, really difficult to do. Really difficult to do. The way the EU did it, though, in particular, I don't think is the best way, because it was a bunch of politicians who did not have technology backgrounds, who didn't really know what this technology was or what it meant, who were very proud of themselves to have regulated something that they didn't really understand. So I don't particularly agree with the way they did it, and I think the end result was not particularly impressive, nor was it practical or enforceable in any way whatsoever. But I think overall, as a larger problem, we have the speed of AI, and how the hell do you write rules and laws and regulate around that? I don't think we don't do it. I think we still should. It's just a really hard pragmatic problem to overcome. Do politicians actually understand what AI is? No, most of them do not. That's the problem. No. There's a great video of, he's not our Prime Minister anymore, Boris Johnson, talking about ChatGPT. It's well worth looking up, actually. Mainly for the way he says ChatGPT. But yeah, a lot of them they'll use ChatGPT maybe on a daily basis, not necessarily very well. Doesn't necessarily mean they have any understanding of what large language models are, what generative AI is, what AI as a whole is, what it can do for society, what it can't do for society. Those are much bigger questions. The ones that require understanding the technology, the ones that require looking into the ethics and the morality, talking about alignment, etc., etc. They will be briefed. They'll have smart people come in and brief them, but it is just a very dense, very complicated subject that has sprung up on society in the last 3 years, and has risen to a level of importance that a technology doesn't normally do in 3 years. So it would have required them to have really been putting in the study to work out what the hell is going on and what this means for society. And I don't see that in the majority of politicians. There is one guy, he's a Labour MP, and there's something of AI. I've forgotten his name. Oh, not Mark Sewards. That was funny. When was that? Was that only August 2025? A few months ago, this guy called Mark Sewards, he put up an AI avatar of himself. I think they... I remember shooting a video being like, oh, this isn't going to go well for you, Mark. It did not go well for Mark. He had to take it down after a few days. No, there's a guy who just vibe coded a website, and I've totally forgotten his name. I'm sorry. Labour MP vibe coded. I'm not going to be able to find him. But I thought it was really cute because he did a little video of himself and how he'd vibe coded a website and how he'd built this thing. And at least he is engaging with the technology and trying it out. And the site's not very good, but that's not the point. It's the point that he's like, oh, okay, there's something new here. There's something that I need to be on top of. And I think he used Cursor. So he downloaded Cursor, he got his hand stuck in, he built a website. It's like, that's what we need. We need politicians who are learning what this stuff means on a practical point of view, not just from reading about it in the newspaper, not just from having some think tank deliver them a report to them. They need to kind of get their hands dirty with it, and I doubt many MPs or many politicians are. What do you think about, will you buy a lot of RAM right now and then sell them? I won't do that because it's gouging. But yeah, RAM is becoming very scarce. Ben says, what country has an AI minister? So that is Albania. It's not actually let's pull it up. So it's kind of an interesting idea. It's an anti-corruption tool, basically. So her name is Diela. I had an Albanian person tell me how to say it. I've forgotten already. Diela. It is an anti-corruption procurement officer, basically. So you go through the process of talking to this bot in order to deal with governmental procurement, because a lot of corruption was happening and a lot of procurement that was happening that was false, just to move money around. So they've put it through an AI, which kind of makes sense. Like, putting an AI into your procurement process to remove corruption makes sense because you're removing the human element and the corruption is coming from the humans. That makes sense. However, the Prime Minister went a bit further and appointed her a cabinet minister. So she's a cabinet member, and then he started talking about how she's had children, because they basically created multiple instances of this AI and then assigned them to different parts of government. But again, he was anthropomorphizing, and this is what she looks like, saying that, oh, she's just had 60 children, and they're now working on all of the 60 different government departments. So a bit of a weird way to do it, but I think the ideas behind it probably make a lot of sense. And using AI in government, if it's used well, is going to allow for removal of human interference, which can lead to things like corruption. So I think the intentions are good. I think the way it's being done is a bit showboaty. This is him, Edi Rama, so he's the Prime Minister. I haven't actually heard of any of the results of it. I assume, like a lot of these big flagship AI projects, it's just not used and nobody ever talks about it, and it just made a few headlines and that's the end of it. But I do not know. Yeah, Ben, corruption prevention is a decent use case. It really is. Like, when you actually look into what they're using it for, it's like, oh, okay, it's a procurement tool. So you go through this AI to say, oh, I need, 50 laptops for my department. Can you help me buy the 50 laptops? So instead of those 50 laptops suddenly disappearing somewhere, or the money, going in a brown envelope to some supplier who's actually your cousin, it's all going through an AI. So that makes sense. I don't know why it had to be given a face. I don't know why it had to be given a cabinet ministerial position. It might just be Edi Rama's way of saying, hey, I've had enough of you guys and the corruption. What the hell? Like, I'm going to put a computer in charge of you. I don't know the full politics of it. Although I'm sure it was somebody's cousin who built the AI system, and some money went changed hands in that way as well. Right, I'm going to finish up for the day. Oh, Vibing with Ed says, when I speak to people in government, only a few of them understand how AI will affect society. Yeah, I mean, it's complex. It's really complex. It's, who was it who was saying, though, that if we had a timeline that that aliens were going to be landing in 3 years' time, and we knew the aliens were coming, we didn't necessarily know their intentions, but we know that they're going to turn up. So if you've ever watched The Three Body Problem, there's a point where the aliens are like, okay, we're coming. And you have a certain amount of time, and we are coming. If we knew that as a society, we would, well, initially we'd panic, and then we would work out, okay, what the hell are we going to do about this? That's not really happening with AI. To be fair, we don't have a set deadline for when AGI arrives, if it arrives, but we have a very strong suspicion that something that is going to be as intelligent as us, maybe more intelligent than us, will exist in the next decade or so. That's something that if it was aliens, if it was coming from outer space, we would bloody well kind of get on with doing something about it. Whereas right now, I think everybody's still got their heads firmly jammed into the sand, and they're ignoring the problem. And that's politicians, that is business owners, that is employees, that is everybody. It's either a toy, which is kind of cool, or it's something that you don't like because it's personally a threat to you, but we're not thinking about the larger ramifications and what this means for society, and it means an awful lot. And these are questions we do need to ask, and I don't think the politicians are. Interestingly, though, the Pentagon set up a steering committee, or they have to set up a steering committee. This is with the new NDAA. So the Pentagon has been ordered to form an AI steering committee on AGI. So this suggests they're taking it seriously. I looked it up as well. The head of the committee does come from a tech background. So he has a degree in computer science, one in engineering. I think his PhD's in engineering. So he is, at least on paper, he's an engineer and a scientist, which is good, because if you just have these steering committees and it's a bunch of, well, political lay people, politicians who've never had a job and certainly don't come from the sciences, what are they going to do? They don't know. They don't know about this. But at least this Pentagon committee is run by a scientist. So that gives me a little bit of hope in whatever they come up with. I don't trust any decisions made in the Department of War. Oh yeah, it got renamed, didn't it? I forgot about that. We're not going down that rabbit hole. Oh yeah, I mean, 100% the reason they are having this discussion is to do with war. Because, I mean, you've seen the robots. And the Chinese company, I forget the company, but they did the demonstration of the T800 the other day. Is it T800? I mean, calling it... Yeah, this is it, T800. Calling it T800 is very Terminator. But the demonstration they did had it like kicking down a door. So they're starting to say the quiet part out loud. The quiet part is, we're going to give these things guns, and we are going to put them into combat zones. Previously, Boston Dynamics and all the robotics companies have been not saying that part because, you know, people will be like, oh my god, that's terrifying. But obviously that's what they're working towards, and they have huge amounts of military investment. But the Chinese have started to show demos of, you know, robots kicking down doors and kind of combat rolling through windows and stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, all right, here we go then. Yeah, I mean, it's where it's heading. Same with drones. Oh yes, iRobot went bankrupt. And iRobot's an American company which has been put out of business, according to iRobot, by all of the Chinese robotics. So iRobot created Roomba. So this was years ago. They had Roomba. But ever since then, the Chinese manufacturers have been able to make much cheaper versions of the products that are also arguably better. And again, if something is cheaper and better, you do not survive in a capitalist market. So, yeah, US listed company whose profits have been in decline since the pandemic will be taken over by Paisia. Is Paisia a Chinese company? Is Paisea. It's the largest ODM. I bet they're Chinese. So many pop-ups. Here we go. Will be acquired by its contract manufacturer Paisea Robotics. That is hilarious. So iRobot outsourced all of their manufacturing to this company, Paisea, and now Paisea are purchasing them. This is what happened with with things like motorbikes. So back in the 1970s and 80s, motorbike production was outsourced to Japan. And Japan very quickly learned how to make really good motorbikes, and then they took over the market with Honda and Yamaha. So nobody's learned. This is also what's happened with chips. The West, America in particular, have outsourced all of their chip manufacturing, CPUs, to China. So to Shenzhen and to companies like Qualcomm and Foxconn, not Qualcomm, Foxconn. And then those companies got really, really good at manufacturing the chips, and now they are the foremost creators of chips. So exactly the same thing has happened, and people do not learn. This is too funny. So the Chinese-based company assumed iRobot's $190 million loan earlier this month, and under the terms of iRobot's restructuring, will waive the debt. That's because they now own it themselves, along with the 161.5 million iRobot owns it for manufacturing its robots. Okay. In return, Paisea will own iRobot in its entirety. So Paisea is actually called Shenzhen Paisea Robotics. I mean, yeah. Right, I'm not going to get into China and robots now, but that is where it is happening. And that's where all the exciting stuff is. But that's for another time. Awesome. Great. Thank you, everyone. I'm hopping off, and I'll see you tomorrow morning for more AI news and updates. Oh, make sure you are subscribed to the newsletter, totally forgot, and come and join the community as well, where we're discussing what happened on the show and in general, talking about AI and how to get ready. Thanks.